Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Annabeth, Clarisse and Thalia? Part 2. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time let's get into the video. After Percy recovered from his shock, he ran over to Chiron alongside Naruto. They began their tour of the camp. They passed by the volleyball pit where several campers nudged each other. One of them pointed at the minotaur horn that Naruto was holding and said, "It's them." Naruto chuckled at the tree binding thing they were talking about, and Percy looked at Naruto with a deadpan expression. "Really? Tree binding?" Naruto smirked. "It's better than snake binding, isn't it?" he said darkly, causing Percy to shudder and look away from him. As they walked, they saw everyone engaging in activities, with satyrs joining them in their activities wearing orange Camp Half-Blood shirts and nothing else. "Hey," Percy said, pointing at the 4-story big house they had just left. "What's up there?" Chiron looked at Percy's pointing, and his smile faded. Naruto raised a brow. "Just the attic. Somebody lives there?" "Nobody," he said with finality. "Not a single living thing." Naruto was curious, the way Chiron said it made it seem like someone was up there, but he refused to acknowledge their presence. Only Percy saw the curtains move. "Hum along, boys," Chiron said, his light-hearted tone now forced. "Lots to see." They walked through the strawberry field where campers were picking bushels of berries, while satyrs played a tune on reed pipes. Listening to Chiron, they learned that these strawberries helped pay for the camp's expenses. "Grover won't get into too much trouble, will he?" Percy asked. "I mean, he was a good protector, really." Chiron sighed, shedding his tweed jacket and draping it over his horse-like saddle. "Grover has big dreams, Percy, perhaps bigger than is reasonable. To reach his goals, he must demonstrate great courage by succeeding as a keeper, finding a new camper, and bringing them safely to Camp Half-Blood." "But he did that," Percy exclaimed. "I might agree with you," Chiron said, "but it's not my place to judge. Dionysus and the Council of Cloven Elders must decide. I'm afraid they might not see this assignment as a success. After all, Grover lost you two in New York, and the fact that Grover was unconscious when Naruto brought him onto the property line, the council might question whether this shows courage on Grover's part. Will he get a second chance?" Percy asked. Chiron winced. "I'm afraid that was Grover's second chance, Percy. The council was not eager to give him another, especially after what happened the first time, 5 years ago. Olympus knows I advised him to wait longer before trying again. He's still so small for his age." "How old is he?" "Oh, 28. "What? And he's in 6th grade. Satyrs mature half as fast as humans, Percy. Grover has been equivalent to a middle school student for the past 6 years. "That's horrible," Percy said, while Naruto felt pity for his friend. "Quite," Chiron said. "At any rate, Grover is a late bloomer, even by satyr standards, and not yet very accomplished at woodland magic. Alas, he was anxious to pursue his dream. Perhaps now he will find another career." "That's not fair," Percy said. "What happened the first time? Was it really so bad?" Chiron looked away quickly. "Let's move along, shall we?" Percy wasn't convinced, but didn't want to anger Chiron. "Chiron," Percy said, "if the gods and Olympus and all that are real." "Yes, child. Does that mean the underworld is real too?" Chiron's expression visibly darkened. "Yes, child," he paused as if choosing his words carefully. "There is a place where spirits go after death. But for now, until we know more, I would urge you to put that out of your mind." "What do you mean, until we know more?" "Come, Percy, let's go see the woods." They reached the edge of the forest. Once they saw it, they realized the forest was huge, taking up at least a quarter of the valley, with tall and thick trees. Naruto smiled happily at the scene. "I guess this is my third home." Percy looked at Naruto and patted his shoulder. Naruto had told him about Konoha many times before, and Percy wondered if one day he could visit Naruto's birthplace. Chiron said to them, "The woods are stocked if you care to try your luck. But go armed." "Stocked with what?" Percy asked, now a little freaked out. "Armed with what?" "You see, capture the flag is Friday night. Do you have your own sword and shield?" "My own?" "No," Chiron said. "I don't suppose you do. I think a size 5 will do. I will visit the armory later." "Sword and spear fight?" Percy asked. "Cabin challenges and all that," he explained. "Non-lethal, usually." "Oh yes, and there's the mess hall." Chiron pointed to an outdoor pavilion framed in white Grecian columns on a hill overlooking the sea, with dozens of stone picnic tables, but no roof or walls. "I'm hungry now," Naruto said, his stomach letting out a beastly roar, making Percy jump at the sound, and Chiron chuckled. Finally, they reached the cabins that Naruto had seen earlier. The collection of 12 cabins was very odd to Percy. In the center of the field was a huge stone-lined fire pit, and Naruto saw his aunt tending to the flame, poking the coals with a stick. She noticed his gaze and smiled warmly at him, causing him to smile back. Percy looked at the huge mausoleum-like cabins at the bend of the U and instantly knew who they were for. Zeus and Hera. Correct, Chiron said. Their cabins appear empty, Percy observed. Several of the cabins are indeed unoccupied, but no one ever stays in those two. Chiron explained, which made Naruto smirk. Oh, if only you knew, Chiron, he mused. Percy seemed to be fixated on cabin 3, Poseidon's cabin. It was low, long, and solid, with all its windows facing the sea. The outer walls were rough gray stone adorned with pieces of seashell and coral, resembling the ocean floor. Curious, Percy tried to sneak a peek inside. Chiron cautioned, oh, I wouldn't do that. But Percy was already inside. Poseidon's cabin was just as described earlier, and Percy's curiosity got the best of him. Come on, Percy, he said as he led them away from the cabin. Hey, where are all the other centaurs? Percy asked. Chiron sadly replied, my kinsmen are wild and barbaric folks. You might encounter them in the wilderness or at major sporting events, but you won't see them here. You said your name was Chiron, Percy inquired, are you really the Chiron from the stories? The man smiled down at the boy. The Chiron from the stories? The trainer of Hercules and all that? Yes, Percy, I am. But shouldn't you be dead? Percy questioned. Chiron paused, as if intrigued by the question. I honestly don't know if I should be. The truth is, I can't be dead. You see, eons ago, the gods granted my wish to continue the work I loved, to be a teacher of heroes, as long as humanity needed me. I gained much from that wish and I gave up much. But I'm still here, so I can only assume I am still needed. Oh, look, he said, changing the subject. Annabeth is waiting for us. When they reached the blonde girl, they were at cabin 11. She was reading a book in Greek about Greek architecture. Annabeth, Chiron said, I have archery class at noon. Would you take these two from here? Yes, sir. Cabin 11, Chiron told them, gesturing toward the doorway. Make yourselves at home. Out of all the cabins, cabin 11 was the oldest and appeared the most worn due to its former use as a home for all unclaimed demigods and the children of minor gods. Its dull brown paint was chipped and a caduceus hung over the door. Looking inside, Naruto couldn't help but sweat drop at the sight. It was even more crowded than the other cabins. There weren't enough beds, and campers were sleeping on the floor with sleeping bags. Naruto thought, I might have to talk to 2chan about this, or better yet, I have a better idea. They all seemed to be in good spirits. When they saw Chiron, they stood and bowed to the man. Sally emerged from the group and hugged Percy. Oh, Percy, I'm glad you're okay, she said, relief and happiness evident in her voice. Percy blushed from embarrassment at his mother's affectionate gesture, but he smiled nonetheless, relieved that his mother was okay. Hey, Mom, he said as Sally released him and held Percy's hand. Naruto smiled at the scene. Well, then, Chiron said, good luck, Percy. I'll see you at dinner. He then galloped toward the archery field. Turning to the group behind them, they saw all of them seemed to be sizing them up. Percy walked forward and fell face first to the floor. Sally helped her son, and there were snickers all around. Naruto just walked forward as if nothing had happened. Annabeth announced, Percy Jackson and Naruto Uzumaki, meet cabin 11. Regular or undetermined? Somebody asked. Undetermined, Naruto said bluntly, making them groan in annoyance. The guy who was older than the rest came forward. Now, that's what we're here for. Welcome, Naruto and Percy. You can have that spot right over there, it's pretty big, so it will fit the two of you for now. He was about 19, tall and muscular with short cropped hair and a friendly smile, though Naruto noticed that his smile didn't reach his eyes, a sign that it might be fake. He narrowed his eyes as he picked up on some resentment and hate from the guy. He decided to keep a close eye on him. This is Luke, Annabeth said. Her voice sounded different somehow. They looked at her and saw that she was blushing. Naruto shook his head sadly, it was the same during his time with Team 7. Sakura had a crush on Sasuke, who ended up betraying the village and never returned her affections. He hoped history wouldn't repeat itself. He's your counselor for now, she said. For now? Percy asked. You're undetermined, Luke explained patiently. They don't know which cabin to put you in, so you're here, in cabin 11. Welcome, all newcomers, all visitors. Naturally, we would. Our patron, Hermes, is the god of travelers. The god of thieves. Let's see who the greatest thief is, Naruto said challengingly, making all the Hermes campers narrow their eyes at them. Only Luke challenged him back. Are you sure, Naruto? Some of us are experts at stealing, he said with a smirk. Naruto only smirked back at him. Sure, bring it on. He decided to give Luke his wallet. Watch, and money back. Here you go, man. Luke widened his eyes. What when? He said in shock, while everyone except Percy widened their eyes. Naruto winked at them, making the girls, including Annabeth, blush. I'm a shinobi, Luke, a ninja. We're thieves among thieves, assassins in the shadows. You won't know what hit you before it's too late, he said, grinning darkly. Several guys shivered, and the girls blushed, except for Sally. Anyway, Percy interrupted, already used to Naruto's antics, how long will we be here? Good question, Luke said after he pocketed his wallet and patted his pocket to make sure everything was still there. Until you're determined. How long will that take? The campers all laughed. Come on, Annabeth told Percy, I'll show you the volleyball court. I've already seen it, Percy said. Come on, she grabbed his wrist and dragged him outside. They could still hear the laughter from cabin 11. Naruto shook his head and walked away from the duo unnoticed. He walked to the edge of the forest and flashed through hand signs. Mokuton. Renchika no Jutsu, wood-style row houses jutsu. He slammed his palm to the ground. By sending chakra into the ground, the roots of the plants were converted into raw materials. This technique allowed for a building to be constructed by forcing accelerated growth, with the size and shape of the building taken from the user's imagination or memories. Naruto created 2 cabin-sized houses from under the ground and let them grow rapidly while shaping them into 2 cabin-sized houses. Naruto placed barrier seals around the houses, making them impossible for any monsters to detect and allowing the user to stay in peace. The campers watching from the sidelines could only gawk with wide eyes and drop jaws, their expressions resembling that of fish out of water. Alright, some of the campers from Hermes' cabin can bunk in here, Naruto called out, breaking their dazed stupor. The campers from Hermes' cabin snapped out of their shock and quickly packed their belongings, rushing toward the newly created cabins, as if they were being chased by hellhounds. Naruto chuckled slightly at their reaction. Inside the cabins once more, their jaws dropped even further. Inside, there were 15 beds that looked incredibly comfortable, resembling feathers. 3 air conditioning units provided a cool environment, and a fire pit at the center of the living room warmed the room. Comfy sofas and love couches completed the cozy interior. While the cabins seemed small on the outside, their interior looked like a mansion. Hey, Naruto, how will the air conditioning work? They don't have electricity, one of the male campers asked, clearly puzzled. Naruto smirked and pulled out a piece of paper from his pouch. The paper had the drawing of lightning in kanji on it. Seals, man. They are wonderful workers, he said proudly as lightning emerged from the paper, powering the air conditioning units. Now, make yourselves at home, Naruto said warmly, and the campers cheered for their new accommodations. Naruto walked toward Annabeth, who appeared to be in a bad mood. The reason? Chiron had told him that Zeus might not be pleased with this arrangement. Naruto shrugged it off, thinking that if Zeus was displeased with his work, he should claim his demigod children himself, instead of leaving them unclaimed. Annabeth, seemingly unaware of Naruto's presence beside her, watched as Clarisse and her friends mocked Percy. They began pushing Percy's head toward the toilet. Naruto sensed something stirring within Percy. This is going to get messy, he said, startling Annabeth. Huh? Annabeth asked. Then, out of the toilets, a torrent of water shot out, soaking Clarisse and causing her friends to scramble to help her. The toilets exploded, showering the water and mud all over the place. Naruto flashed through hand signs, using his Mokuton jutsu once more. Mokuton. Makijimiki, wood-style domed wall jutsu, Naruto yelled out. A domed wall of wood materialized, enclosing Naruto and Annabeth, protecting them from the water and debris. Percy approached the dome and knocked on it a few times. The dome retracted into the ground, disappearing as if it had never been there before. Annabeth looked at Naruto in shock. How did you? I don't kn, Percy was cut off by Annabeth. I didn't ask you, Percy. I'm asking Naruto, Annabeth said. Naruto chuckled. That's for me to know and you to find out, he winked at her, making her blush and pout. Well, Percy, it seems you just gave the name Water Boy a new meaning, Naruto teased, grinning at Percy, who told him to shut up. Annabeth giggled at their exchange. They walked through the door and saw Clarisse and her friend sprawled in the mud. A bunch of campers had gathered to gawk. Clarisse's hair was plastered against her face, her camouflage jacket was soaked, and she smelled like sewage. She glared at Percy with absolute hatred. You're dead, new boy, totally dead, she threatened. Dawn. Toppa, wind-style immense breakthrough, Naruto called out. A strong gust of wind blew away the water and mud into the forest. Everyone was now gawking at Naruto. First wood, now wind. What was he, a son of Demeter and Zeus combined? Naruto walked toward Clarisse and helped her up. Sorry for Percy here. He's still new to his powers. Though watching you in the mud is sexy, he teased, making her blush madly. Then he disappeared in a flash of red and black lightning, reappearing right beside Annabeth and Percy. He left more people gaping in astonishment. He's definitely a son of Zeus now, Percy smirked at him. Says the guy who made the toilets explode, Naruto shot back, smirking smugly at Percy, who pouted in response. As they moved away from the commotion, Annabeth addressed them, "How about you two join my team for capture the flag? Come on, Naruto, it will be fun." "No. Pretty please. No. The winner gets ramen." That made him twitch a bit before he walked away. "No. Okay, if you join my team, I'll give you an orange shirt." That made him twitch violently before he walked away at a faster pace. "No. Okay, if you win, I'll give you a kiss." That made him stumble a bit before he turned to look at a blushing Annabeth. Everyone who heard her loud offer turned to look at her. Some from Hermes and Aphrodite cabins made catcalls and kissing noises, making the girl blush even more. Naruto's eyebrow twitched at the campers and Annabeth. "Why would you want me and capture the flag, Annabeth?" he asked, stopping in his tracks. She played the shy cute girl card. Tilting her head to the side, she looked at the ground with her hands behind her back, her lips forming a cute pout. She circled her foot on the ground and looked at him with teary eyes. To any other men, they might have fallen for the hurt and sad little girl trick, but Naruto was not like other men. He looked at her with a deadpan expression before he poked her forehead with 2 fingers, making the girl almost fall back from the force. Annabeth was shocked. Not even Aphrodite cabin could resist her sad and hurt little girl act. On Naruto's side, he sighed in resignation. He could do better, after all, he had created that look back in the elemental nations. He grinned evilly, ready to show her how to do it properly. He grabbed a senbon that tied his hair and pulled it, letting his white waist-length hair fall over his back. He put his hand on his back while the other twirled his long hair, puffed his whiskered cheeks, and set his lips into a bigger pout. He tilted his head to the side and leaned forward. Now it was Annabeth's turn to twitch at the sight. "OMG, that is so cute," she squealed with delight. On the outside, she was blushing at the sight. The same could be said for the girls from Aphrodite cabin. One girl with black hair and blue eyes and a slim figure was blushing the most. After a moment of blushing and burning the image of cute Naruto into her mind, Annabeth took a deep breath and smiled forcefully at Naruto. "Nice try, Naruto, but I have a stronger will." Naruto smirked at her. "Well, that is impressive. You survived my pout, Annabeth, but no, I will not join the capture the flag game." Annabeth pouted at him, making him sigh. "Alright, fine, I'll join." This made her smile brightly at him, and she tiptoed to kiss him on the cheek, leaving a certain daughter of Hephaestus and Ares glaring at her in jealousy. "Thanks, Naruto," she said happily while humming a happy tune. Naruto sighed. It had been, like 67 times already she had asked him to join. After that little incident in the bathroom, people were whispering about what had happened. Naruto just shrugged off the looks he received from the campers, but Percy felt slightly uncomfortable with the attention. Then they passed a rock climbing wall with lava. Naruto thought they should add spikes to them, just like he had trained with Jiraiya, except blunted ones and then sharper ones. They also visited the arts and crafts portion of the camp. This made Naruto think deeply. After the war, he had been given all the 7 swordsmen's swords as a gift from the Mizukage herself. He was thinking of recreating the team and starting a project with his brother Hephaestus to create non-chakra 7 ninja swords with bronze to kill monsters. Maybe he could recreate the group with the right people. "You need to talk to the oracles," Annabeth told them. "Who? Not who, what?" I asked Chiron. Percy sighed and looked down at the water, hoping for a straight answer. His eyes widened when he saw 2 people down there. Naruto noticed it too. They saw 2 teenage girls sitting cross-legged at the base of the pier, about 20 feet below. They wore blue jeans and shimmering green t-shirts, their brown hair floating loosely around their shoulders as minnows darted in and out. They saw the 2 boys but blushed upon seeing Naruto and waved at them. "Don't encourage them," Annabeth warned. "Naiads are terrible flirts." "Naiads?" Percy repeated, feeling completely overwhelmed. "That's it, I want to go home now." Annabeth frowned. "Don't you get it, Percy? You're home. This is the only safe place on Earth for us." "I wouldn't put my trust so blindly in that," Annabeth, Naruto thought with a grimace. "You don't know if this camp is truly a safe place or not. It's better to be safe than sorry. After all, the gods themselves cannot save Thalia outside the camp." "You mean mentally disturbed kids?" Percy deadpanned. "I mean not human, not totally human anyway, half human." "Half what?" "Half human, half god, Percy. You are a demigod," Naruto explained. Percy stood still for a moment before he exclaimed, "Then that means my father is alive." "Yes, and that means he must be one of the Olympians," Annabeth said. "That's crazy." "Is it? What's the common thing the gods did in the old stories? They ran around falling in love with humans and having kids with them. Do you think they changed their habits in the last few millennia?" "I don't think so," Naruto chuckled at Annabeth's bluntness. She was right about them. "So what are we called again?" Percy asked. "We are demigods," Annabeth said. "Then who is your dad?" Percy asked. Her hands tightened on the pier railings. He got the feeling he had touched a sensitive subject. My dad is a professor at West Point, she said. I haven't seen him since I was small. He teaches American history. Naruto winced at that. It seemed her father didn't want her and she had run away. From the way she talked about it, it was clear that it had been a painful experience. So your mom is Athena, then, he said more like a statement than a question. Annabeth nodded with a small smile. Figures, I guess smart people hook up with only smart people, he joked, making Annabeth giggle cutely at him, and Percy chuckled at that. Naruto always had a way to lighten the atmosphere. He's human, Percy said. What? So you assume it has to be a male god to find human females attractive? How sexist is that? Okay, so who is my dad then? Percy asked. Undetermined, Annabeth said. Like I told you before, nobody knows. Except my mother, she knew. Maybe not, Percy. Gods don't always reveal their identities. My dad would have. He loved her. Annabeth gave him a cautious look. Maybe you're right. Maybe he'll send a sign. The only way to know for sure is if your father sends you a sign, claiming you as his son. Sometimes it happens. You mean sometimes it doesn't? The gods are busy, Percy, Naruto said. Sometimes they don't claim their kids. That's why cabin 11 is full of campers. Well, not full anymore, he added, making Percy and Annabeth smile at him, grateful that he had created a new cabin for other unclaimed kids. So, I'm stuck here forever, then, Percy said a bit glumly. He had seen the sad expressions on the campers at cabin 11. He had seen that same sadness in the rich kids at Yancey Academy back then. Naruto chuckled. Not forever, Percy. Until you learn to defend yourself against monsters, you'll stay here to get your hero's training. Believe it or not, there are older campers who stay outside the camp and you can be a year-round camper if you don't have a place to stay or you don't have anything to do. Some campers only stay during the summers, he explained. If you're a child of Aphrodite or Demeter, you probably won't be a powerful force, Annabeth added. Naruto glared at her slightly. His Aunt Demeter was not weak, she was strong, just like the rest. She should eat more cereal. In the mortal world, we attract monsters. They sense us and come to challenge us. Most of the time, they ignore us until we're old enough to cause trouble, usually when we're about 10 or 11 years old. Most demigods either make their way here or get killed off. A few manage to survive in the outside world and become famous. Believe me, if I told you their names, you would know them. Some don't even realize they're demigods. But very, very few are like that. So monsters can't get in here? Percy asked, hoping he was safe. Not unless they're intentionally stalked in the woods or someone on the inside summons them, Annabeth explained. Why would anybody want to summon monsters? Practice fights, practical jokes. Practical jokes. In other words, she means pranking someone, Percy, Naruto said bluntly, making Annabeth nod. The point is the borders are sealed to keep mortals and monsters out. From the outside, mortals look into the valley and see nothing unusual, just a strawberry farm. So you're a year-rounder? Percy asked, and Annabeth nodded. She pulled out a leather necklace from under the collar of her t-shirt. It had 5 clay beads of different colors and a big gold ring strung on it, resembling a college ring. I've been here since I was 7, she said. Every August, on the last day of the summer session, you get a bead for surviving another year. I've been here longer than most other campers. They're all in college. Why did you come here so young? Annabeth twisted the college ring nervously. None of your business. Naruto winced, realizing Percy had made a bad move. So, I can get out if I wanted to, right? Percy asked after an awkward silence. That would be suicide, but with Mr. D or Chiron's permission, yes. However, they wouldn't give you permission until the end of the summer unless. Percy asked eagerly, hoping to find a way out. Unless you were granted a quest. But that hardly ever happens. The last time Annabeth trailed off, and they could tell from her tone that the last quest hadn't gone well. Back in the room, Percy said, when you were feeding me that stuff. Ambrosia. Yeah, and that stuff almost killed me when I took a sip, Naruto complained, remembering the water. Percy chuckled. And you were asking me about the summer solstice. So you know something. Annabeth's shoulders tensed. Well, no, but back at the old school, Naruto and I heard Chiron and Grover talking about it. Grover mentioned the summer solstice and said something like I don't have much time because of the deadline. What did that mean? We couldn't figure it out. She clenched her fist. I wish I knew. Grover and the Satyrs, they know, but they won't tell me. Something is wrong on Olympus, something pretty major. The last time I was there, everything seemed normal. You've been to Olympus? Percy asked, surprised. Some of us year-rounders, like Luke, Clarisse, and me, along with a few others, took a field trip during the winter solstice. That's when the gods have their big annual council. But how did you get there? By the Long Island Railroad. Of course, you get off at Penn Station, then the Empire State Building, and there's a special elevator to the 600th floor, she explained, looking at Percy as if she expected him to know. Naruto groaned. Annabeth, well we are New Yorkers, I bet the mist wouldn't let us see the 600th floor. He said this, making Annabeth blush from forgetting that important fact. Right after we visited, Annabeth continued after regaining her composure, the weather got weird, as if the gods started fighting. A couple of times since, I overheard satyrs talking. The best I can figure out is that something important was stolen, and if it isn't returned before the summer solstice, there's going to be trouble. I was hoping. I mean, Athena can get along with almost everybody, except for Ares and, of course, she has a rivalry with Poseidon. But aside from that, I thought we could work together. I thought you might know something. Naruto was thinking about what could have been stolen from his father. The fact that the weather and the sea were clashing together suggested things weren't going well up there. His best guess was that something powerful was stolen from his father, and his dad accused Poseidon of it. To make matters worse, Percy was the unfortunate son of Poseidon. He needed to visit them after this. Suddenly, they heard Percy's stomach give a powerful roar. Right, I'll see you later, Annabeth said, tracing her finger along the railing of the pier, as if she were drawing up a battle plan. Let's go, Percy, Naruto said, placing his hand on Percy's shoulder, and they disappeared into a distortion. Mount Olympus. Naruto walked toward the throne room. After he had sent Percy back to cabin 11, he flashed straight to Olympus. He could feel the power emanating from the throne room, and the whole of Olympus was shaking like a mini-earthquake. What the hell is happening? Naruto thought as he pushed his chakra to his feet to stop himself from falling due to the quake. I know you're the one who stole it, give it back. He heard his father shout, making him sigh miserably. I did not take your stupid night glow, you're blaming me because mother favored me. He heard his uncle shout, making him sweat drop at the last jab. Why does mother have anything to do with this, and I know you're using that sea spawn of yours to steal my bolt. I did not, you mama's boy. What? Take that back, you seaweed. Mama's boy. Seaweed. Mama's boy. Seaweed. Naruto just stood behind the door with a larger sweat drop forming behind his head. I swear they're acting like kids, he thought tiredly. He had no doubt that they had been arguing for hours. He entered the throne room without even needing to knock and sweat dropped again at the scene. There was his mother Hera and his aunt Hestia trying to calm down their husband-brother before another disaster happened down in the mortal world. His father was poking his index finger at Poseidon's nose while his uncle pushed his palm against his father's chest to push him away. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Dad." His father stopped his important matter and they turned their attention to their son. "Yes, my son, what can I help you with?" Zeus asked with a somewhat forced smile while sending his brother a pointed look that said we're not finished yet. I was wondering what could have been stolen from you that makes you argue with uncle about grandma instead of the thing you've been missing, he said to his father with a deadpan look, making both brothers blush with embarrassment while his mother and aunt sent their knowing smirks to their husband-brother. Well, my son, for the past few months, my lightning bolt has been missing, and I'm sure your pathetic uncle has stolen it from me, he said, before sending Poseidon a glare, with Poseidon doing the same. I told you many times, I don't have your stupid bolt, Poseidon said, enraged at being accused. Well, what about that Jackson boy, huh? You think you could hide him from me? I know you used the boy to steal the bolt from me, and you dared not to confess about your treason. Zeus raged, while Poseidon did the same. You're blaming my son. I have not seen him since the day he was born, thanks to your hypocrite rules, Poseidon reminded his brother. Hypocrite, you dare to call me hypocrite? If the boy does not bring me back my bolt, there will be war, Poseidon, and your son will be the first to taste my wrath. Do not touch my son, Zeus. Do not forget you broke the oath too. Remember Thalia Grace. It was you who broke it first, and yet I didn't do anything to the girl. You should be grateful for my mercy. Why you? Enough. Naruto shouted, sending his own power at the two of them. They both stiffened as they felt the primordial power wash over them. Naruto took a deep breath. Father, while I understand that your bolt has been missing, I can assure you that Percy has nothing to do with it. I was with him during these past months, he said. His father looked at his son before saying, if not that sea brat, this got a glare from Poseidon for calling his son a brat, who stole my bolt then, my son. I have my suspicions, father, but please give me time to prove it. I know that Percy is not the thief, father. If you're not convinced, then I swear on the river Styx, if Percy is the real thief, then I will take care of him myself. Thunder boomed in the distance as his father and uncle looked at him in shock, along with his mother and aunt. Zeus nodded slowly. Very well, I will not declare war and hurt the boy, but I will have my bolt back before the summer solstice. Can you help me with this, my son? He asked with a smile, and Naruto smiled back. Of course, father. Naruto flashed behind Percy, who didn't notice his arrival. So where are we going? Percy asked nonchalantly, scaring the boy. Naruto, don't do that. Percy yelled at him, his hand on his chest, trying to calm his beating heart. We're going to the dining pavilion. They marched up the hill to the mess hall pavilion. The satyrs joined the group from the meadow, naiads emerged from the canoeing lake, and a few other girls came out of the woods. At the dining pavilion, torches blazed around the marble columns, and a central fire burned in the bronze brazier the size of a bathtub. Each cabin had its own tables, covered in white cloth trimmed in purple. 4 of the tables were empty, but cabin 11 was way overcrowded. Percy had to squeeze his way in at the edge of the bench, with half of his butt hanging off. Naruto just walked toward an empty space at the corner of the dining pavilion, attracting curious gazes from many campers. Naruto put his hand in the snake sign, and a table and bench made out of wood appeared from the ground, leaving campers shocked and wondering how he did that. Naruto waved at the Hermes table, inviting them to come sit with him. They all sat at the new table, and Percy took a seat beside Naruto. The boys saw Grover sitting at table 12 with Mr. D, a few satyrs, and a few plump blonde-looking boys who resembled Mr. D. Chiron stood on one side. The picnic tables were too small for the centaur. Annabeth sat at table 6 with a bunch of serious, athletic-looking kids, all with gray eyes and blonde hair, making Naruto wonder if Athena had a penchant for blonde guys. Clarisse sat with her cabin mates. She had apparently forgotten about being washed in the toilet water and was now laughing and chatting with her siblings. Finally, Chiron pounded his hoof against the marble floor of the dining pavilion, and everyone fell silent. He raised his glass in the air. To the gods. To the gods. Everybody followed Chiron's example, except for Percy, who did it weakly, trying to escape this madness. Wood nymphs came forward with platters of food. Naruto and Percy's glasses were empty, but Luke said, "Speak to it, whatever you want, non-alcoholic, of course." "Blue cherry coke," Percy said, making Naruto chuckle at him. "Don't judge me," Percy pouted at him before taking a sip. "Honey's sake." Percy watched as Naruto's glass filled with yellow-looking liquid before Naruto took a drink. "Hey, Naruto, what is sake?" Percy asked loudly, with a confused expression, while other campers watched them. "It's alcohol, Percy." "But I thought Luke said no alcohol." "That's because I'm mortal, Percy. That's why the rule doesn't apply to me," he explained patiently while Percy nodded. "Come on," Luke yelled out and followed him to the bathtub-sized fire. "Throw a good portion into the fire, they love the smell." Percy deadpanned at him. "Are you kidding?" But he saw Naruto throw a bit of ramen into the fire, making him follow his example as well. After they finished their meals and Chiron pounded his hoof, grabbing their attention, Mr. D sighed and stood up. "Well, I suppose I should say hello to you brats." "So, hello. Our camp activities," Chiron said, "our next capture the flag would be next Friday. Cabin 5 presently holds the laurels." A bunch of ugly cheering came from cabin 5. "Personally," Mr. D said, "I couldn't care less. But congratulations also. I should tell you we have 2 new campers today, Peta Jameson and Naruto Uzumaki." The campers were shocked that Mr. D got Naruto's name right. Apparently, Dionysus had tasted Naruto's wrath when he got his name wrong and received a lava-flavored curry instead of Diet Cola. So, now he would appreciate not going through that again, "Thank you very much." Percy muttered lowly at the mistake Mr. D made. Then Chiron muttered something. "Percy Jackson, sir," he said. "That's right, hurrah. Now, run along to your silly campfire. Go on." Everybody cheered, and they all headed down toward the amphitheater, where Apollo Cabin would lead a sing-along about the gods and eat s'mores. They gave Naruto a guitar. Naruto raised a brow. "Come on, Naruto, sing," one of the Aphrodite campers begged. They all knew Naruto had played the ocarina a few times, so he must be good at singing. He sighed and took the guitar. Dionysus smirked. "Oh, this should be good. I heard the song on the radio, so I guessed I could try. Undone by FFH. I don't own the song. Open up wide, swallow down deep. No spoonful of sugar could make it sweet. The cancer inside, stealing my sleep. Night after night, it keeps haunting me. The secrets I keep are tearing me up inside. I try to hide them, and I wonder why. I wonder why I'm still running. When I know there's no escaping. I'm undone, surrender is stronger. I don't need to be the hero tonight. We all want love, we all want honor. Nobody wants to pay the asking price. Fall on my knees, fall on my pride. I'm tripping over all the times I've lied. I'm asking please, but I can see in your eyes. You don't need tears for alibis. That's true what they say, love must be blind. It's why you're still standing by the sinner's side. You're still by my side. When all the things I've done have left you bleeding. I'm undone, surrender is stronger. I don't need to be the hero tonight. We all want love, we all want honor. Nobody wants to pay the asking price. I don't think I can drive it home tonight. I don't think I want to be alone tonight. I'm undone, surrender is stronger. I don't need to be the hero tonight. We all want love, we all want honor. Nobody wants to pay the asking price. I'm undone, surrender is stronger. I don't need to be the hero tonight. We all want love, we all want honor. Nobody wants to pay the asking price. I'm undone, surrender is stronger. I don't need to be the hero tonight. We all want love, we all want honor. Nobody wants to pay the asking price. I'm undone, surrender is stronger. I don't need to be the hero tonight. We all want love, we all want honor. Nobody wants to pay the asking price. I'm undone, surrender is stronger. I don't need to be the hero tonight. We all want love, we all want honor. Nobody wants to pay the asking price. In the end, everyone was clapping and smiling at the song. Clarisse, Annabeth and Selena were blushing at Naruto's soulful voice. Mr. D smiled at the part "I don't need to be a hero tonight." Figures, Naruto thought as he smiled back at them. After all, he had a big family to take care of. "Medical team, where are you? We have a critical injury here." Naruto shouted in panic, Niji's body propped against his head laying on his shoulder. "No, I'm no longer," Niji tried to speak, but his voice quickly faded. In front of him, Hinata fell to her knees, her face set in horror as tears streamed down her face. "Naruto, Hinata is willing to die for you." Hinata choked back a sob, listening reverently to her cousin's last words. "So you hold more than one life in your hands." Niji's eyes dimmed further, his voice getting fainter. "And it seems that my life too may have been one of them." Naruto blinked away tears, a question on his lips. "Why, Niji? Why would you go so far for me? Even give up your life?" Niji smiled, a smile filled with blood, a small laugh rumbling in his chest. "Because you called me a genius." The seal faded, Niji felt relief, he was free. "Usama, I finally understand the freedom you felt choosing to die to protect your loved ones." His head slipped from Naruto's shoulder, his eyes closed forever. The cage bird flew free once more and it soared toward the heavens. "Niji!" Naruto screamed as he woke up with a cold sweat. He looked around and saw Percy, Sally and the other campers huddled around him in concern. Tears streaked down his face and his eyes were red and puffy. "Naruto, are you okay, man? You've been screaming and tossing around violently." "We're here to see if you're alright," Percy said, worried for his friend. Naruto took a deep breath and smiled, though his smile was fake as it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, just a bad dream, that's all." "Are you sure, dear? It must be a bad one if it's making you scream," Sally said in a motherly tone. "No, I just need to be alone for a bit," he said as they all nodded and filed out, except Sally, who still stood there with a concerned expression on her face. "Naruto, sometimes it's better to talk about your nightmares rather than bottle them up," Sally said as she sat beside him and rubbed his hands. So Naruto told her about the war, the death of his comrades. He cried a bit when he told her about Niji's death. She rubbed his back before he fell asleep on her shoulder. She tucked him into his bed, pulled the blanket over him, and gave him a motherly kiss on the forehead before she turned off the light and closed the door. The next day Percy and Naruto followed their usual routine, training and learning in their different classes. Ancient Greek. They learned Ancient Greek with Annabeth, although it was only Percy who truly grasped it. Meanwhile, Naruto, thanks to his Rin Sharingan, effortlessly acquired proficiency in English, Japanese, French, Greek, and Roman languages. Percy couldn't help but wish he had an incredible ability like Naruto's eyes. Sword and Shield. The Sword and Shield class, led by Clarisse and Luke, saw Clarisse deciding to spar with Naruto, with Nissa present to examine if Naruto had any other weapons. The campers who gathered around to watch the spar couldn't help but shiver at the devious smirk Naruto had on his face. "Alright, where's your sword, blonde?" Clarisse asked as she held her magical spear and shield. The audience watched silently, including a certain raven-haired and blue-eyed teen who observed curiously. Naruto grinned and held out his right hand. A blue flame engulfed Naruto's hand and then, poofed. In his hand appeared a large broadsword, as tall as a full-grown man, shaped like a butcher knife. The blade itself had two cutouts, a circle close to the top and a semicircular one nearer to the handle. The former aptly defined the sword's purpose of decapitation. The latter notch allowed a strap to be wrapped around the weapon, making it easier for the user to carry. Its extremely long handle was also detachable to aid transportation and then reattached when required for combat. Naruto grinned at a gobsmacked Clarisse and pointed the sword at her. "This sword is called Kubikurabjm, literally meaning decapitating carving knife." Everyone who heard the name shuddered at the menacing name of the sword. Its former wielder is Uzumamachi, better known as the Demon of the Hidden Mist. More people shuddered in fear at that revelation. And soon, you're about to see why he was called that. Naruto put his left hand into a half-ram sign and positioned his hand in front of his chest, while his other hand pulled the broadsword onto his back. Garigakur no Jutsu, Ninja Art Hidden Mist Jutsu. A mist sprang forth, utilizing pre-existing water near the lake. The mist covered both of them, and the audience watched with fascination, wondering how he did that. Inside, Clarisse was in a panic, looking left and right frantically, trying to find the blonde. How the hell did this happen? She thought, scared and uncertain of where her opponent could be. Behind you, a sing-song voice said behind her. She turned around, waving her spear along the way to see and hit nothing. What are you looking for, Clarisse? She turned around and thrust her spear at the voice, only for the same thing to happen. Behind you. She turned around again, just in time to get a taste of the broadsword. She raised her shield to block, but the force of the hit was so strong that it sent her out of the mist. Clarisse felt relief that she was out of the mist, at least she could fight with her eyes now. Always watch your back, Clarisse. She turned around, but it was already too late. Naruto punched her in the stomach, making her fall on her ass. Naruto just stood there with the massive broadsword on his shoulder. He chuckled at her shocked face. You were too focused on finding me. You never noticed I was never in the mist in the first place, Clarisse. He waved his hand, and the mist dissipated. There, standing in front of them, was another Naruto before it disappeared in a poof, leaving the campers more shocked. I sent a clone inside the mist to taunt you, making you think the real me was inside the mist, while the real me stood here outside of the mist, waiting to get you focused on finding me instead of watching your surroundings. He offered his hand to her, and she took it shyly as he pulled her up. She walked away with a beet red face. She never noticed Nissa and her best friend glaring at the back of her head in jealousy. Archery. Naruto was amazing with a bow and arrow, consistently hitting bullseyes even with moving targets. Thanks to his Ren Sharingan and the guidance of Apollo and Artemis, he excelled in archery. On the other hand, Percy consistently shot at dryad trees, causing them to curse and greek at him, a sight that could even make Clarisse blush. Naruto couldn't help but wonder why the dryads kept asking for his help, their faces blushing, to repair their trees. Using his Mokuton, Naruto created new trees for them, and in gratitude, the dryads gave him a peck on the lips before running to the new trees. He was puzzled as to why satyrs kept giving him jealous glares. Canoeing. The only skill Percy excelled at was canoeing, not exactly the heroic skill people would expect from someone who faced a minotaur. In contrast, Naruto was an expert at almost everything. His bow and arrow skills rivaled those of the Apollo cabin, showcasing amazing strength and stamina. Surprisingly, he even took first place in canoeing, leaving Percy in second. Naruto walked toward the Pegasus stable after finishing a bit of training with Percy. He had offered Percy guidance on proper sword handling and effective battle techniques, shared tips about archery skills, and imparted wisdom on remaining calm in the battlefield. He noticed a brown Pegasus staring intently at him. As he approached, the Pegasus bowed its head slightly, as if begging to be pet. Naruto placed his palm on the horse's head, closed his eyes, and gathered nature through his body. After sealing Kagaya's power and the temporary death of his Biju family, Naruto had to wait a few months before they fully formed again. Oh, I didn't know someone would be here at this time, a feminine voice said behind him. He turned to see a teen with raven black hair and blue eyes, a slim figure, staring at him with interest. Well, I don't suppose it's forbidden, is it? Naruto asked, a slightly confused expression on his face, making her giggle at his expression. Well, no. I'm Selena Beauregard, by the way, she said with a giggle, extending her hand. Naruto took her hand, and she blushed at the warmth he produced. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, but you already know my name anyway, he said sheepishly. Unbeknownst to both of them, when their hands made contact, it sent a jolt of electricity up their spines. So, are you interested in this one, huh? Her name is Alexandra, by the way, she said, pointing at the brown Pegasus. Alexandra, huh? Nice name, Naruto said, receiving a whinny in approval from the horse, making both of them chuckle. How do you do that, by the way? She didn't want anyone to touch her, let alone ride her, Selena asked, remembering every time other campers, besides her and the Demeter cabin, got thrown off the Pegasus saddle, since she was very picky about who would ride her. Naruto shrugged. I'm good with animals, I guess. The five-tailed beast's chakra still flowed through his chakra coils, making sense since Kakuya was a horse kind of Biju. Ever since he became the host of the Ten Tails power, he noticed that all animals related to Biju were fond of him, especially foxes. I kind of envy you. It took me about 3 months to let me ride her. 2 months to gain her trust, she pouted enviously at him, making him blush at her cuteness. Anyway, whose cabin are you in? He asked. Aphrodite cabin, she said, smiling at him. You know, I could teach you how to ride a Pegasus, she said, smiling. Yeah, I woo. He was about to accept when a familiar voice interrupted him. Hey Naruto, are you in? Hinata yelled as she approached with a smile until her smile dropped as she saw the daughter of Aphrodite and her crush standing there alone. Her eyes narrowed, and her lips set into a thin line as she marched toward them, the kusanagi in her hand tightened almost as if trying to break it. "Hey Nissa, finished playing with my sword, I see," Naruto amusedly said. Yesterday, he had seen Nissa and Charles swinging his sword around and testing it against all metals, from normal metal to titanium and celestial bronze. He couldn't help but chuckle internally at that. "Yeah, are you busy? I thought we could have lunch together before capture the flag," she said, sending a pointed look at Selena and speaking nervously at the end. "Yeah, okay. I don't have anything," he replied, but he was interrupted again by a voice he recognized. "Hey Blondie, I want to have a spa," Clara said. Her voice trailed off as she noticed her crush standing with her best friend and the daughter of Hephaestus. Walking toward them, she gave Selena a look akin to betrayal and sent Nissa a pointed look that Nissa kindly gave back. Tension was high in the stables, but Naruto, being Naruto, was oblivious to all this. "Well, Clarisse, no, since I'm joining Capture the Flag. But we can fight in the game if you're up to the challenge," Naruto told her in a challenging tone as her eyes narrowed at him playfully. She stepped up to him, their faces almost inches together and their noses almost nuzzled against each other. Clarisse had a pink hue on her cheek but straightened up against him, making Selena and Nissa narrow their eyes at her bold move. "Oh, really, blonde? I don't think you could take me on," Clarisse taunted him playfully, making him smirk at her. "Oh, trust me, dear," he purred and put his palm on her cheek, making her blush and Nissa with Selena puff their cheeks cutely in jealousy. "When I get in that forest, you will be screaming my name and then you couldn't even walk straight for a week," he purred out in a challenging tone. Clarisse blushed tomato red at his words, as did Nissa and Selena, who looked at Clarisse with envy and betrayal. Unbeknownst to them, what Naruto meant was, "Trust me Clarisse. When I get in that forest, I will use the forest as my advantage and you won't know what hit you until it's too late. You won't even be able to walk after the fight I just gave you." Poor Naruto didn't even realize how wrong his words were. Clarisse, Selena and Nissa gained a glazed look and a bit of drool came out of the corner of their mouths. They were furiously trying to clear their minds of a certain image of what Naruto and Clarisse would do in the forest. Unknown to them, Naruto waved at them and disappeared in a black butterfly. The three of them snapped out of their daydream and glared at each other, determined to fight Naruto and capture the flag to win Naruto for themselves. Soon after they finished their plates, a conch horn was heard and they all stood on their tables. They cheered as Annabeth and her siblings entered the pavilion, carrying a silk banner about 10 feet tall, glistening gray with a painting of a barn owl above an olive tree. On the other side, Clarisse and her siblings ran in with another banner of the same height, garish with a painting of a bloody spear and a head boar. "I still don't understand why I have to join this silly game," Naruto grumbled. After the Fourth Great Shinobi War, he lost interest in games like this. Sure, his younger self might be eager to join, but now he already knew how it felt to lose a comrade who gave his life for you. "Naruto, out of all the campers here, you are the strongest one, so it makes sense that Annabeth wants you on her team," Luke sighed, hearing his grumbling. "So, Ares and Athena always lead a team?" Percy asked. "Not always," Luke replied, "but often." "So if another cabin captures another one, what will we do, repaint the flag?" Percy asked. Luke grinned at him. "You see, but first, we have to get one." "Whose side are we on?" Naruto asked gruffly. Luke gave them a sly look, combined with a scar on his face that made him look evil in the torchlight. "We're making a temporary alliance with Athena. For tonight, we get the flag from Ares, and you two are going to help." The teams were announced. Athena made an alliance with Apollo and Hermes, the biggest cabin. Privileges had been traded, shower times, chore schedules, the best spot and activities in order to win support. Ares made an alliance with Aphrodite, Demeter, Dionysus, and Hephaestus. Chiron pounded his hoof on the marble. "Heroes," he announced, "you know the rules. The creek is the boundary line, the entire forest is fair game, all magic items are allowed, the banner must be prominently displayed with no more than 2 guards, prisoners may be disarmed but not bound or gagged, no killing or maiming is allowed. I will serve as the referee and battlefield medic. Arm yourselves." He then spread his hands and the table suddenly filled with equipment, bronze swords and spears, helmets, oxide shields coated with metal. "Whoa," Percy said, surprised. "We're really supposed to use this?" Luke stared at Percy as if he had gone crazy. "Unless you want to get skewered by your friends in cabin 5. Here, Chiron thought these would fit." Naruto chuckled at the sight of Luke fitting Percy in Greek armor. He bit his thumbs and smeared them on his right palm, creating a table using his Mokuton. He slammed his palm on the table, making everyone jump and look at him in surprise. Suddenly, with a puff of smoke, 5 kinds of armor appeared on the table. The first one was traditional Japanese armor with the color of maroon, 3 metal plates on each shoulder, and 4 plates on his front, left and right legs. The traditional Uchiha armor, the legendary Madara Uchiha armor. The second one also had 3 metal plates on the shoulder, but had white fur at the collar. It only had a long metal plate on the front of the lower body. Unlike the first one, this one was blue instead of maroon Tobirama Senju's armor, the second Hokage. The third one, instead of metal, was a gray sleeveless vest with straps on the back for a tanto, and arm protection armor with a fox mask on top of it. The fourth one was a simple green zip-up flak jacket with a pocket on the chest standard Konoha Jonin or Chunin vest. The fifth one was a normal gray and black flak jacket, but unlike the fourth one, this one didn't have a zipper, Kakashi's the last flak jacket. Naruto picked the fifth one and slipped it on. Naruto then looked at gobsmacked Luke and Percy. "You know you could take one if you want, Percy," he offered. Percy got out of his shock and picked the Anbu armor. "Nice choice, Percy. It gives you protection, but unlike the metal ones, it will not slow you down," Naruto stated, while Percy looked at him oddly. "If it's heavy, then why do you wear one?" he asked. Naruto just waved nonchalantly. "You get used to it eventually, and the heavy armor is only for heavy combat. You're more of a sneaky kind of fighter than a heavy one. Besides, wearing that metal armor will mold your body to shape." Percy nodded at his friend's words before he slipped into it as well. It was kind of comfortable for him. Naruto wore a blue headband without a metal plate, as blue was on Athena's side. Annabeth yelled, "Blue team forward." The group cheered and shook their swords, following Annabeth down to the south woods, while the red team yelled taunts at them as they headed toward the north. Percy marched toward Annabeth thanks to the armor Naruto gave him. He could run toward her without slowing down, as his armor was kind of light. "Hey," though Annabeth just kept marching. "So what's the plan? Got any magic items you can loan me?" Annabeth's hand hovered over her pocket when Percy asked that. "Just watch Clarisse's spear," she said. "You don't want that thing touching you. Otherwise, don't worry. We take the banner from Ares. Has Luke given you your job?" "Border control, same as Naruto. Whatever that means." "It's easy. Stand by the creeks, keep the Reds away, leave the rest to me. Athena always has a plan." She left him in the dust as he stayed in the back, watching her march with her team. "Okay," Percy mumbled. "Glad you wanted me on your team." Days had turned to night, and Naruto and Percy had stationed themselves by the next creek that gurgled over some rocks. Annabeth and her team had scattered into the forest. Percy stood there, groaning, while Naruto sat on a rock with closed eyes and crossed legs. "This is so boring," Percy mumbled, stifling a yawn. He glanced at his blonde friend, who had been silent for a long time. Percy felt a slight worry about what might be happening with Naruto. Unbeknownst to Percy, Naruto had sent a clone to relieve his boredom. Using his Rin Sharingan, Naruto could see what the clone saw, a kind of remote control, except this time controlling himself and with a much better range than an actual remote control. The Naruto clone hopped from tree to tree until it spotted the Hephaestus and Demeter kids. Naruto flashed through hand signs, Doten. Doric Taiga, Earth-style Great Mud River. Beneath the ground, the land transformed into mud, flowing towards the Hephaestus and Demeter kids. They paled when they saw the mud river. Hephaestus kids began to construct a mechanical wall, with Demeter kids assisting with woods. They sighed in relief as the river passed the two sides of the wall. To their horror, the wall started to crack. Back with Naruto, he performed another jutsu, Doten. Directen, Earth-style Earth Dragon bombs. At the mud river, a form took the shape of a dragon. The dragon opened its mouth and began shooting mud bullets. The Demeter and Hephaestus kids screamed in horror as they received merciless mud bullets that pushed them to their limits. The clone stared at his handiwork before disappearing in a poof of smoke, and the dragon started to crumble. The real Naruto opened his eyes and saw Clarisse and her friend standing right in front of them. "Percy, you handle the other two. Clarisse is mine," he declared. Percy looked at him, horrified that he had to handle two opponents instead of one, while Clarisse blushed tomato red at his possessive words, though she knew he didn't mean it that way. "Same here, leave the blonde for me," she said without breaking eye contact with Percy. "Are you sure, Naruto? Aren't you supposed to be fighting two people instead of one?" Percy pleaded with his friend. "What? You scared, Prissy?" Clarisse sneered hatefully at Percy, though he ignored her. Naruto raised a brow. "So, you would deal with her electric spear then?" He pointed at her spear, which was releasing lightning. That shut Percy's mouth. Naruto got up, brushed his pants, and dashed toward Clarisse, who raised her spear in response. She swung her spear at him, but Naruto caught it with his hand, making her eyes widen in shock. Lightning danced on his arm. "Sorry, but lightning won't work on me," he said as he punched Clarisse in the gut, making her spit saliva and fly across from him. On Percy's eye, he lamented, "Oops, I guess no dessert for me then." One of Clarisse's siblings had managed to land a cut on his arm. Clarisse rushed toward the blonde, but Naruto made his favorite hand sign. "Haju Ukage Bunshin no Jutsu." A dozen clones appeared in a puff of smoke, surrounding Naruto. They all rushed toward Clarisse, forcing her to fight the blonde clone. When she destroyed the last one, she looked around and saw no sign of the blonde until she felt someone kick her shin, making her stumble forward. A strong hand held her left hand to her back and a sharp knife was pointed at her throat. Again, you need to keep moving and beware of your surroundings, Clarisse-chan, he whispered in her ear, making her blush and shiver as she pushed her back toward his strong chest, feeling his abs. He looked at Percy and saw two sons of Ares on the ground, unconscious but still alive. Then they heard yelling, elated screams, and saw Luke pass the boundary line with an Ares banner held high. He was flanked by Hermes' guys, covering his retreat, and a few Apollo campers behind them, fighting off Hephaestus's kids. Clarisse, at this point, didn't even care about the game anymore. She just wanted to be in his strong arms and feel his abs all day. Naruto released her, earning a whimper of disappointment from her. They staggered after Luke, but it was too late. Everybody converged on the creek as Luke entered friendly territory. The blue team exploded into cheers. The banner shimmered and turned into silver, the symbol of a boar and spear turning into a huge caduceus, the symbol of Cabin 11. Everyone on the blue team started to pick up Luke and carry him around on their shoulders. Tyron cantered out of the woods and blew the conch horn. The blue team had won. The boys were about to join them in celebration when Annabeth's voice said beside them, "Not bad, heroes." Percy looked around but didn't see her, but Naruto did, thanks to his eyes. He walked toward where Annabeth was standing and poked her stomach, causing the girl to yelp in surprise and pull her Yankees cap off, making her visible to everyone. Percy had a shocked look on his face as he pointed at the blushing Annabeth. "You set us up. You put us here because you knew Clarisse would come after me while you sent Luke around the flank. You had figured all this out." Annabeth shrugged. "I told you, Athena always has a plan. A plan to get me pulverized. I came as fast as I could. I was about to jump in, but you and Naruto dealt with it rather easily," she shrugged nonchalantly. "How do you do that?" Annabeth said, pointing at his arm. "Sword cut," Percy replied, still upset that she used him as bait. "What do you think?" "No, it was a sword cut," Annabeth said. "Look at it." Naruto looked at Percy's arm in fascination as it healed at a fast pace. I don't get it," Percy said, shocked, looking at his arm as if it came from outer space. "Step out of the water, Percy." "What?" "Just do it," came an annoyed reply. With a sigh, he walked out of the water, and almost instantly, the rush he felt when he fought Ares' kids disappeared. He was about to fall, but Naruto quickly caught him. "Oh, sticks," Annabeth cursed. "This is not good. I would assume it would be Zeus." Naruto almost snorted in laughter at that last one, though he wouldn't be surprised if his father made another demigod. He heard a growl before a howl echoed through the forest. He heard Chiron shout in ancient Greek, "Stand ready. My bow." Annabeth drew her sword. Naruto created a clone and told it to protect Percy. He activated his eyes and saw an undead energy around a monster. He narrowed his eyes as he prepared the hand signs. Above them on the rock, a hellhound the size of a rhino with lava-red eyes and fangs like daggers stared straight at Percy. Annabeth told him to run, but he froze in fear at the sight of the hellhound. "Suiton. Shuriken no Jutsu, water-style water dragon jutsu," Naruto exclaimed. The water from where Percy was standing rose up and took the shape of a Chinese dragon. The dragon gave a loud roar before slamming into the hellhound, pushing the dog across the forest, much farther from them. Annabeth, Percy, Chiron, and the other campers watched the whole scene with gobsmacked expressions. The hellhound roared as it stood up on four legs, glaring at the blonde. Naruto glared back before flashing through hand seals again. Fuchius no Jutsu, summoning jutsu. There, in front of the hellhound, in a puff of smoke appeared Cerberus. Many of the campers and satyrs thought in shock as they saw a large three-headed dog. Well, not exactly Cerberus. The dog was large, maybe larger than Cerberus, with a large rod on its nose and a strange rippled tomo-red flame eyes staring down at him. It had wings on its body. The hellhound just stared dumbly at the large three-headed dog, as did the campers. The dog was currently wondering what in the name of underworld his father was doing in this place. Shouldn't he be in the underworld? And when did his father use mortal makeup all of a sudden? With piercings and contact lenses and all that. The three-headed dog raised its large paw and smashed the puny hellhound. The hellhound stood no chance. "That was awesome," one of the younger Ares cabin members said. The campers started to gather around Naruto, bombarding him with questions. "How did you summon Cerberus, Naruto? That water dragon is awesome. You're so hot, wanna have a fling?" Naruto sweat dropped at the last one. Chiron trotted next to Naruto and Percy with a grim face. "Immortales," Annabeth said. "Those are hellhounds from the fields of punishment. They're not supposed to." "Someone summoned it," Chiron said, his expression grave. "Someone inside the camp." Luke came over, the banner in his hand gone, his moment of glory faded. Clarisse yelled, "It was Percy. Percy summoned it." "Be quiet, child," Chiron told her. They were silent as they watched the squashed body of a hellhound melt into shadow, soaking into the ground until it disappeared. "You're wounded," Annabeth told Percy. "Quick, get into the water." "I'm okay." "No, you're not," Annabeth insisted. "Chiron, watch this." To avoid arguing, Percy stepped back into the water and instantly, he didn't even feel red anymore, he felt better. The campers and Chiron noticed this. "I don't know why, but Percy started, attempting to apologize. But they all looked above his head and Naruto was smiling warmly at him. "Percy," Annabeth pointed up. Percy looked up, but the sign was already fading. He could still make out the hologram, spinning and gleaming a trident. "Your father," Annabeth murmured. "This is not good." "It is determined," Chiron said. All around Percy, including Chiron, started kneeling, though the Ares cabin didn't seem happy about it. "My father?" Percy asked, bewildered. "Poseidon," said Chiron. "Earthshaker, Stormbringer, father of horses. All hail Perseus Jackson, son of the sea god." Percy looked at Naruto for help but gasped when he saw 5 symbols, along with the other campers. The first one was a symbol of a lightning bolt, the second a peabeat feather, the third a symbol of the hearth, the fourth an 8-sided mirror behind the symbol of a Torii gate, and the fifth comprised 8 arrows in a radial pattern. "It is determined," Chiron announced after getting out of his shock. "All hail Naruto Uzumaki, son of Zeus, god of the sky, air, weather, lightning, honor, and justice and the king of the gods. Son of Hera, goddess of marriage, motherhood, women, family love, and queen of Olympus. Nephew of Hestia, virgin goddess of hearth, home, and the right ordering of domesticity and family. Great-grandson of Chaos, god of the universe, and great-grandson of Amaterasu, leader of the Shinto pantheon, goddess of the rising sun and the universe." Hera's cabin. Naruto sat on his bed in his mother's cabin, he had been sitting like that for a while now. All of this doesn't make any sense. Why would Uncle Hades want to send the Minotaur after Percy's mother? And why would he send a hellhound here? Naruto mused. His uncle didn't have anything against Poseidon. He remembered that Hades had only sent monster after monster to kill Thalia because of his father's mistake in killing his uncle's lover, Maria D'Angelo. Unless Naruto created a rainbow using water manipulation and threw a drachma into the mist. The mist shimmered, revealing his uncle Hades sleeping on his desk, trying to ignore paperwork, while Persephone stood beside him, attempting to wake him up. "Sister," he called, getting her to turn her head and smile brightly at him. After visiting all his family, he went down to the underworld to bond with his uncle. Hades and Persephone were shocked that someone willingly visited them, as usually demigods or mortals were too scared to come. Hades didn't actually mind his presence, though Persephone adored the boy. Apparently, she found his whisker marks cute and kept him as a plush toy. He glared at Hades for that remark. He also made them his special cherry cakes, and all the Olympians, along with Hades and Persephone, loved his cherry cakes. They claimed his cherry cake surpassed Hestia's cookies, making his aunt pout. He chuckled and reassured her that her cookies were still delicious. "Little brother, what can I help you with?" Persephone beamed happily at her brother. "I need to speak with uncle, sister. Can you help me wake him up?" Naruto asked, smiling slightly at his half-sister. Persephone nodded and shook Hades up. Hades groaned tiredly and murmured, "3 more minutes, Persephone." Naruto's eyebrow twitched at that. He put chakra in his throat and shouted in a deep yelling voice that could make Cerberus startled, "Wake up, you lazy ass." Hades jumped in his seat and looked around bleary before setting his sight on Naruto and scowling in annoyance as he rubbed his temples. "Naruto, what do you want?" "You know you don't need permission to enter the underworld," Hades said. It was true. Ever since his sister made him promise to come every week a month, Hades had given Naruto permission. "Uncle," seeing his favorite nephew's serious look, he straightened up. "Do you know anything about the hellhound that attacked inside the camp?" Hades shook his head. "Nephew, even with me being the god of the underworld, I can't control the monsters in here. It was probably someone who summoned it inside the camp," he said. "Uncle, have you lost anything?" Naruto asked. "Yes, my dear nephew. My helm of darkness has been stolen since the winter solstice. I know Poseidon was the one who stole my helm." "How?" "Demigod, of course," Naruto sighed as he heard his uncle Hades ranting and Persephone trying to calm him down. "Still, I'm sure it's not Percy, uncle. I've been watching the boy for a while now. I'm sure it's anyone else who stole it, uncle," he said firmly. Hades narrowed his eyes as he thought about his nephew's words. "Very well, then, Naruto. I will not send the Furies after the boy, but you can get me my helm back, right, nephew?" "Of course." "Hey, Naruto," he turned around and saw Nissa standing behind him, hands behind her back, looking at the ground as if the ground itself fascinated her all of a sudden. "Hey Nissa. What can I do for you?" he asked with a smile, making her blush a bit. "Well, I was hoping to ask you out with me later," she asked shyly while her face started to heat up. Naruto blinked rapidly at that before he smiled. "You mean as a friendly date?" "If possible," Nissa's face went even redder. "I mean as a boyfriend for me." her voice barely a whisper. Naruto blushed at seeing where this was going. Nissa, are you asking me out on a date? Like a romantic date? Nissa bobbed her head faster than his father's oration. Naruto forced his blush down and smiled at her. Nissa, I don't like you that way. Nissa's face was heartbroken. But I guess I can give it a shot. He said unsurely. Given his mother's lineage, Naruto actually couldn't break a woman's heart as his mother had a domain concerning women. Nissa beamed at him happily, which could mistake her as a child of Apollo. She then tiptoed and kissed him on the cheek. They could hear catcalls from the Hermes cabin and jealous glares from a certain daughter of Athena, Aphrodite, and Ares. If a certain daughter of Zeus were there as well, thunder would definitely come out of the sky. I'll see you later then, she said quickly before running away with an atomic blush. In her mind, she was cheering and dancing in joy. Ha, take that, Clarisse and Selena. Naruto just stood there dumbly before making his way to Thalia's tree. Thalia was confused as to why Naruto appeared in front of her with such a dumb look on his face. Naruto, are you okay? Thalia asked worriedly, concern evidently in her tone as she fretted over him. Thalia, I need help, he asked. Need help? Of course, I'll help you, Naruto. So what do you need? She asked. So Naruto told her about the girls and Nissa kissing him earlier and asked for tips on how to respond to that. Thalia smiled at Naruto while fuming on the inside. How dare that girl try to take Naruto away from her? He is hers and not anyone else's. Even for the few days Naruto visited her, she had been very possessive of Naruto. Naruto then told her about his parent and that's when the bomb dropped. Wait, that means he's my brother? Thalia was shocked that her crush was actually her half-brother. Well, I don't care. Greeks were into incest anyway, she thought with determination. Those mortal morals could go to hell for all she cared. If anything, she loved him more, well, more than any sibling relationship. Well, Thalia, it's time for me to go. Do you want me to send your regards to your friends? He asked. She smiled at him gratefully and shook her head. There's no need, Naruto. Otherwise, people will start calling you crazy for talking to me. Naruto shrugged. Well, if that's what you want. She nodded with a small smile. See you later, Whisker, she said before hugging him gently. Naruto was surprised by this before he hugged back as he started to fade. Sure, Thalia. Unknown place. Thea was intrigued. For the last few months, she had felt someone tugging and harnessing her power. Initially wary of who could steal her power, she realized that the one taking it didn't even realize he was taking it from her. She tracked the source all the way to the disgusting place mortals called New York. Torture for her senses with pollution and foul smells in the air, she wished she could summon her son Tiffin to wipe out all the mortals. To her shock, she found a child sitting on the ground, cross-legged with eyes closed. He sat so still that Gaia would mistake him for a statue. Thanks to him, she could see that he was taking her power and harnessing her energy. All the plants around him glowed happily. Who was he? She kept tabs on him, watching, nurturing, and realizing that whatever he did brought her comfort and healed her wounds. He unknowingly took her vengeance and rage to the gods piece by piece. She started to love this child as her own, giving him strength and power. He didn't even realize who was empowering him all this time, and that irked her for all eternity. She wanted to hear him calling her mother, wanted him to learn her language, wanted to make him immortal so he could be like her other children. She worried sick when she saw him fighting the Minotaur but was relieved when she saw he was okay. Her maternal instinct roared into life when she saw a pathetic half-blood trying to snatch her son from her, even though it wasn't official yet. Then her father started calling her and her other siblings. She was scared, her father rarely called unless it was important. Even her husband, Uranus, was there. My son and daughter, today I have important news to tell you, her father said. He still looked the same as always, with his cloak depicting the solar system and other universe planets he had created. His eyes kept changing colors, as if they were the eyes of the universe itself. Lady Amaterasu sat beside her father in her own throne, wearing an expensive-looking white kimono with red markings on her forehead and shoulders. Next to her father was her aunt, Lady Order, wearing a fancy black dress with the solar system on it. Her hair flowed into a long ponytail with the color of a glowing aurora, and her eyes were cold with the color of crimson haze. She was stunningly beautiful. 3 primordials with the power to create other universes were in the same room without causing an explosion. Chaos, Uranus, Nyx, Erebus, and Acles looked at each other. What is it, father? Uranus asked politely. 15 years ago, Amaterasu and I decided to choose a child of prophecy in Shinto fashion. This child can bring peace to this dimension and is also my great-grandson, your great-grandnephew, he said with a smile. His children wore faces of total shock that almost made him laugh. It would be troublesome, as his laugh alone could destroy 10 of his planets, including Earth. What is the name of this child, father? Uranus asked curiously. His name is Naruto Uzumaki, Amaterasu answered for him. We brought him here because he has suffered enough in my fashion, she said sadly, confusing them except chaos and order. Chaos smiled sadly and waved his hand. A mirror made of his power appeared in front of them, showing everything in Naruto's life from the abuse and torture from the villagers to the death of his godfather, the loss of his comrades, and the betrayal of what he called a brother. Nyx, Achilles, and Gia were all in tears and rage. Those stupid villagers tortured him, and Gia vowed to meet him and maybe adopt him. Erebus and Uranus cursed up a storm that caused disasters on Earth, but their father had sealed the room, preventing their full-raged power from affecting Earth. I ask all of you to visit him, my children. He may not look like it, but he is hurting from the inside. I want all of you to help him release all that emotion he keeps in, Chaos said with a kind smile on his face. Nyx, Gia, and Achilles nodded and disappeared from the planet. Uranus and Erebus looked at their father, still enraged at what those pathetic mortals had done to their great-grandnephew. Father, are you not going to punish those stupid mortals? Erebus asked angrily while Uranus nodded at his brother's words. Chaos shook his head. They are Shinto, my sons. No matter how much you want to punish them, Amaterasu forbids the gods from influencing the mortal world. Amaterasu nodded at this. No matter how much she wanted those villagers punished, she couldn't go against her own rules. Since witnessing the consequences in the Greco-Roman dimension that Chaos had created, she had forbidden the gods from entering her dimension. Only those stripped of immortality could enter her realm. Erebus and Uranus muttered angrily before disappearing from the place. Half-blood. So let me get this straight. We're supposed to go to the underworld and confront the Lord of the Dead. Check. Find the most powerful weapon in the universe. Check. And get it back to Olympus before the summer solstice in 10 days. That's about right, Naruto said with an excited gleam in his eyes that disturbed Chiron a bit. Did I mention that Maine is very nice this year? Grover said weakly. You don't have to go, Percy told him. I can't ask that from you. Grover took a deep breath and stood up, brushing shreds of cards and aluminum off his shirt. You guys saved my life. If you're serious about wanting me along, I won't let you down. Percy and Naruto smiled at that. Grover is truly one of a kind satyr, with his good or bad luck finding big three demigods, well, except him since he's immortal. All the way, G-Man, Percy turned to Chiron. So where do we go? L.A. Percy. That's where the underworld is, Naruto said boredly, having been there many times before. Chiron looked surprised that Naruto knew but brushed it off. Okay, Percy said. So naturally, we just get a plan. No. Grover yelped. Percy, what are you thinking? Have you ever been in a plane in your life? Percy shook his head. Naruto sighed in annoyance at his father and uncle's rivalry. Why won't they just duke it out? Percy, think, he said. Your father and mine have a rivalry kind of sort. Think of this, once you fly in the air in my father's domain, no less, you would be in enemy territory with landmines ready to blow you out of the sky at any moment. He explained, making the boy gulp nervously. Okay, Percy said. So, we travel on land. That's right, Chiron said. 2 will accompany you. Grover is 1, and Naruto is sent to help you find his father's lightning bolt, giving you the advantage Zeus won't blow you out of the sky. The other one has already volunteered if you accept her help. Naruto activated his eyes and saw Annabeth behind Chiron. He smirked, and Percy joined him. He walked behind Chiron, poked the girl at the side, making her yelp and giggle at the same time. He took off the hat and she shimmered into existence for all to see. I've been waiting a long time for a quest, seaweed brain, she said, trying to be casual as if she didn't yelp and giggle. Athena is no fan of Poseidon, but if you're going to save the world, I'm the best person to keep you from messing up, she said, making Naruto raise a brow before smirking at her. Oh, are you sure, Professor Annabeth? I think me is enough to keep Percy from messing up, he said in a challenging tone. Annabeth narrowed her eyes at him before taking a step toward him, closing the gap between their bodies. Annabeth looked up at him since she's shorter than him, her nose almost touching his neck. Or is that so, plushie? I think you just messed it up with seaweed brain here, Naruto's eyebrow twitched at the affectionate name plushie. Ever since they knew he purred when they rubbed his whisker mark, they had been calling him that. Oh, trust me, Prof. I think you couldn't handle me if I started to cause trouble, Annabeth's smirk widened. Oh, we'll see. Chiron, Grover, and Percy looked at each other. This will be interesting. Apollo walked through Olympus, lost in thought about his brother. Not in that way, of course. Well, he might be bisexual, he did not swing in that direction, especially not with his own brother. Ever since Naruto had come to live in Olympus, Apollo couldn't receive a clear prophecy about him. Everything about him kept changing from being a primordial god to Artemis, Aphrodite, and Athena kissing him. Though he secretly hoped for the last one. He wanted a nephew, damn it. His sister had yet to give him one to spoil. Everything about Naruto kept changing, and that worried him. For all the immortal life of him, he couldn't figure out why. Flashback. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one who called you friend, and you shall fail to save what you matter most in the end." The figure began to dissolve, and the mist coiled into a huge green serpent, slithering back into the mouth of the oracle. The oracle did a creepy thing next. She looked at Naruto and opened her mouth, then shut it, repeating this action as if trying to talk. Eventually, she closed her mouth and reclined against the wall. The boys looked at each other, unsure of how to react to this. Flashback end. For some reason, all the visions about Naruto are positive, every single one of them. No matter, he knows his brother is strong enough to handle whatever awaits him in the future. Now it's time to flirt with Artie's hunter, Apollo thought with glee before he vanished in golden light. After they finished packing their stuff, Nissa and Clarisse gave him a goodbye kiss, as they called it, and Sally fretted over Percy's safety. Argus drove them out of the countryside and into western Long Island. "So far, so good," Percy told Annabeth. 10 miles and not a single monster. Naruto punched his head, making the boy cry out in pain. "Don't push your luck, Percy, as I know you always have bad luck, so don't ask for it." Annabeth nodded and gave Percy an annoyed look. "What Naruto said is right, seaweed brain. It's bad luck to talk that way. Remind me again why you hate me so much." "I don't hate you." "Couldn't fool me," Percy mumbled. Naruto sighed. It felt like Team 7 all over again. I know Athena and Poseidon have a rivalry, but you two need to work together. Trust me, if you don't, it will cause more disaster for this team. This is a quest, not some rivalry to see who will do best. We need to focus on this quest and keep each other alive," he scolded, making Annabeth lower her head in shame and Percy sheepishly smile. Traffic slowed them down at Queens. By the time they arrived in Manhattan, it was sunset and started to rain. Argus dropped them at the Greyhound station on the Upper East Side, not too far from Sally's apartment. Argus unloaded their bags, though Naruto didn't have one since he had a scroll. He made sure they got tickets and then drove away. The eye on the back of his hand opened and watched them as he pulled out of the parking lot. They waited for the bus until they got bored and played hacky sack, except Naruto, since he was working on his barrier seal. Annabeth was great at the game, landing on her knee, shoulder, and elbow. Sometimes the apple went to Naruto, and it just landed on his pinky finger before he flipped the apple back to them. The game ended since Percy tossed the apple toward Grover and it got too close to his mouth. In one mega goat bite, their hacky sack disappeared, core, stems, and all. Grover blushed, tried to apologize, but Annabeth and Percy were too busy cracking up. Finally, the bus came. As they stood in line to board, Grover suddenly looked around, sniffing the air like he smelled his favorite school cafeteria delicacy, enchiladas. "What is it?" Percy asked. "I don't know," Grover said tensely. "Maybe it's nothing." Naruto narrowed his eyes and brought out his Hiraishin kunai. As they boarded, Percy was getting nervous because his friends were acting differently. Annabeth kept slapping her Yankees cap nervously against her thigh, Grover kept looking everywhere, and Naruto was the scary one, since his face was cold with no emotion. As the last passengers got on, Annabeth clamped her hand on Percy's knee. "Percy." An old lady had just boarded the bus. She wore a crumpled velvet dress, lace gloves, and a shapeless orange hat knit that shadowed her face. She carried a big paisley purse. When she tilted her head up, her black eyes glittered. Percy freaked out. It was Ms. Dodds, older, more withered, but definitely the same evil face. Naruto groaned. His uncle Hades had just promised not to send the Furies, so why would they be here of all places? Behind her came 2 more older ladies, one in a green hat and one in a purple hat. Otherwise, they looked exactly like Ms. Dodds, with the same gnarled hands, paisley handbags, and wrinkled velvet dresses. They sat in the front row, right behind the driver. The 2 on the aisle crossed their legs over the walkway, making an X. It was casual enough, but it sent a clear message. Nobody leaves. Naruto deadpanned at the scene. "Right, no sending the Furies, uncle, and yet there are 3 of them right in front of me." The bus pulled out of the station, and they headed through the slick streets of Manhattan. "She didn't stay dead long," Percy said, trying to hide the quivering in his voice. "I thought you said they could be dispelled for a lifetime." "Percy, they're the right hand of Uncle D. They recover faster than any monster," Naruto said in a cold tone. "Yeah, and I said if you're lucky," Annabeth said. "You obviously are not, and they're probably at their full power." "All 3 of them," Grover whimpered. "Die immortales." "It's okay," Annabeth said, obviously thinking hard. "The Furies, the 3 worst monsters from the underworld. No problem. We just slip out the windows." "They don't open," Grover moaned. "The back exit," she suggested, looking back, only to find none. "There wasn't one," Naruto said, activating his eyes. "They won't attack us with witnesses around, will they?" Percy asked. "Mortals don't have good eyes," Annabeth said. "Their brains can only process what they see through the mist." They see 3 old ladies killing us, won't they? Annabeth thought about it. Hard to say. But we can't count on mortals for help. Maybe the emergency exit on the roof? Naruto gave her a dry look. Yeah, as soon as we did that, as fast as the old hags noticed us. Annabeth blushed but said nothing. They reached the Lincoln Tunnel, and the bus went dark except for the running lights down the aisle. It was eerily quiet without the sound of the rain. Ms. Dodds got up in a flat tone as if she rehearsed it and announced to the whole bus. I need to use the restroom. So do I, said the second sister. So do I, said the third sister. They all started coming down the aisle. I got it, Annabeth said. Percy, take my hat. What? You're the one they want. Turn invisible and go up the aisle. Let them pass you. Maybe you can get to the front and get away. But you guys. There's an outside chance they might not notice us, Annabeth said. You're a son of the big 3. Your smell might be overpowering. But Naruto is also a son of the big 3, Percy said. I might be a son of the big 3, Percy, but I'm still a clear-sighted mortal. I can't just leave you, Percy said. Percy, go now, Naruto said in a tone that left no argument. Percy's hands trembled. He felt like a coward, but he took the Yankees cap and put it on. When Percy looked down, he saw his body wasn't there anymore. He started creeping up the aisle, managing to get up 10 rows up the aisle before ducking into an empty seat just as the Furies walked past. Ms. Dodd stopped, sniffing, and looked straight at Percy. His heart was pounding. Apparently, she didn't see anything. She and her sisters kept going, and he made it to the front of the bus. They were almost through the Lincoln Tunnel now, and he was about to press the emergency stop button when he heard hideous wailing from the back row. The old ladies were not old ladies anymore. Their faces were still the same, but their bodies had shriveled into leathery brown hag bodies with bat wings. Their hands and feet changed into gargoyle claws, and their handbags had changed into fiery whips. The Furies surrounded Grover and Annabeth, lashing their whips and hissing, "Where is it? Where?" The other people on the bus were screaming, cowering in their seats. They saw something alright. He's not here. Annabeth yelled. He's gone. Yeah, and go back where you came from, Naruto said coldly, Rincharingan glowing with power. The Furies raised their whips, Annabeth drew her bronze knife, Grover pulled a tin can from his snack bag and prepared to throw it, Naruto gripped his kunai tighter, ready to flash out with them any moment. Don't think our master is fond of you. We're going easy on you, boy, one of the Furies spoke. Really? That's funny, Naruto said in amusement with a small cruel smile that sent shivers down anyone's spine who saw it. I was about to say the same thing. Don't think you, Hades' handmaids, I'm going to go easy on you. Everything was going to be okay. But again, Percy had done something stupid, impulsive, dangerous. The bus driver was distracted, trying to see what was going on in his rearview mirror. Still invisible, Percy grabbed the wheel from him and jerked it to the left. Everybody howled as they were thrown to the right. Hey! The driver yelled. Hey, whoa. They wrestled for the wheel. The bus hit against the side of the tunnel, grinding metal and throwing sparks a mile behind. The bus careened out of the Lincoln Tunnel and back into the rainstorm, people and monsters tossed around the bus, cars plowed aside like bowling pins. Somehow, the driver found an exit. They shot off the highway, through half a dozen traffic lights, and ended up barreling down one of those New Jersey rural roads. There were woods to the left, the Hudson River to the right, and the driver seemed to be veering toward the river. With another great idea, Percy hit the emergency brake. The bus wailed, spun a full circle on the wet asphalt, and crashed into the trees. The emergency lights came on, the door flew open, and the bus driver was the first one out, the passengers yelling as they stampeded after him. Percy stepped into the driver's seat and let them pass. The Furies gained their balance, lashing their whips at Annabeth, while she waved her knife and yelled in ancient Greek, telling them to back off. Grover threw tin cans. Naruto ducked his head just as the whip almost hit him. Percy, you blue-loving fool, idiot, he screamed at Percy in his mind. Yeah, great idea, Percy, to crash the bus. Hey, Percy yelled, taking off his hat, revealing himself. Amaterasu. Suddenly, black flames engulfed Ms. Dodds and her sisters. They screamed in pain and looked at the one who did it. There, Naruto just sat, arms crossed, his eyes streaming small black flames like tears. He looked at them coldly. Ms. Dodds tried to get up, but the flames burned her wings to ash. Zeus will punish you, she promised. Hades will have your soul. Not today, Naruto said coldly before he summoned Kuroki Jishinki, chakra receiver, and threw it at Electo. The rod hit her in the stomach and she exploded into dust. Suddenly, thunder shook the bus. Get out. Annabeth yelled. Now. Naruto's eyes changed into Kamui version. He grabbed Annabeth, Percy, and Grover's arms. Kamui. Their forms started swirling into a vortex just as the windows of the bus exploded and the passengers ran for cover. Lightning shredded a huge crater on the roof. Hamui dimension. In the swirling vortex, they all came out in a human pile, and Naruto just stood there, watching the amused scene. "Grover, move your goat leg off my face," Percy said. "Percy, you pervert. Get your hand off my breast." A red-faced Annabeth screamed out, enraged with female fury in her tone. Percy blushed and tried to get up, but Grover's goat leg kept him down. Naruto sighed and helped them up. They all stood awkwardly, Annabeth glaring daggers at Percy, who blushed and sputtered apologies. Grover looked around, and they found themselves in some kind of square platform. Many platforms floated around them. "Where are we?" Grover asked. Annabeth looked around curiously, while Percy stared at the platforms with an odd expression. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.